Georgia seems to be struggling right now. That's the other side of this. But at long last, Thero does enough, comes up big, and Arkansas finds a way to win. Thero with 17-11, Carter Knox with 13. Arkansas shot 3 for 23, Mike LaTulip, from downtown, and they won the game.
Needed it. In God knows how many ways they needed this. And you can tell, I mean, the way they were just celebrating after the game right there was almost like the team essentially kind of rushed the court there to get Thero. And man, you hope that for Arkansas, man, this is the inflection point. I mean, Calipari jumping up and down, happy to get that win for sure. But look, I was curious with Boogie Fland out, does that simplify things? And it's nothing against Boogie Fland at all. When I first saw this team against Lipscomb to start the season, my question was, okay, individually, I like the pieces, but how is this going to work? What's the identity of this team going to be? Because I could see 4 guys that you could look at as the guy. And I've always thought when you have 4 guys that could be the guy, you don't have a guy. And at least now when you take one of them out of the equation, things can at least simplify a little bit. And whether it's late game, there's not as many guys that you're looking to potentially go and get you one. It's just, hey, it's probably Thero. It might be Wagner or it might be Davis, and that's kind of it. So yeah, this is huge. I mean, you've probably dug too much of a hole at this point in SEC play, but you've never questioned the talent with Arkansas at all. So it's really is. It's good to see them get this win and kind of get the monkey off their back. And you touched on it with Georgia, man. I mean, this is for how promising it looked. What, 2 weeks ago? You're getting buried here in a really tough SEC.
Yeah, I mean they did. They lost to Tennessee and Auburn back to back. Everybody's probably going to lose. Most teams are going to lose to Tennessee and Auburn back to back, especially when that's at Tennessee. So I don't think a lot of people had huge expectations for Georgia this year. So I don't think we have to slam on Georgia too much. But did you guys see the end of that game? Did you see the last call that sent Thero to the line? It's going to be another controversial ending, I'm guessing, because when they slowed it down, it didn't look like there was any kind of contact there. It looked like he just kind of fell. But, officiating is officiating. But, I mean, this is what I think that, to your point, Arkansas is a poorly constructed team in that there's just too many guys that are ball dominant guards. And you might be right. Like maybe taking one away kind of helps them. And it's also going to make it so they only got 8 scholarship players, right? Nobody should be looking over their shoulder and worrying about playing time. Like maybe this is what unlocks it for Johnell Davis, but him and DJ Wagner both went 3 of 14 tonight. To be able to win when they both go 3 of 14 is pretty wild. But I will give them this. Offensively, like it was very ugly tonight, but these kids do continue to battle and they're playing hard. And I think John's best era, his best time at Kentucky, his guys would always guard, always play hard, and usually looked a little better offensively than this iteration looks. But I will give it to him that his kids are continuing to battle and they're continuing to play hard, and guys aren't checking out. And that's pretty much what won them the game tonight. Like they still guarded. They just kept chipping away, and eventually they made a bunch of free throws and they got to win. I'm surprised they were able to do it watching the first 3 quarters of that game, but good for them. They got one.
I just congratulations to Arkansas for winning the ball game. But I'm sorry, man. I mean, Johnell Davis, what happened? Like what in the world occurred here? Of how do you go from Florida Atlantic and being one of the faces of a Final Four run, to a level that I think if you weren't at Arkansas, you'd be at another high major. Let's face it. And how is he shooting 3 for 14? And how is he shooting 1 for 10 from 3 in a game? 1 for 10 from 3 in a game. But this has happened throughout the season. And so I'm not disagreeing with Mike on the ball dominant stuff, because I think you're right. Like, that puzzle, the puzzle pieces haven't fit. And you could win a game at home against a Georgia and still not have them fit. Now, I give the kids a lot of credit. Adu Thero and Knox, they found a way and they fight hard. But to me, what it feels like is, it feels like a restaurant that you grew up going to and that you loved. Then you left town. You went to college. You didn't come back for a long time. Then you go back, COVID happens. There's a relatability scale here. There has to be. Then you go back to the restaurant after COVID or after a long gap of time, and you sit down for a meal and you start to taste it and you're like, this isn't the same recipe. This isn't what I remembered it for. What did they change? Well, we had to cut that from the menu. Like, we don't serve that anymore. We don't have that any longer. It's like this. Have you heard that Chick-fil-A changed their waffle fries? Have you heard that? They changed up their waffle fries. That's what well, they have. And guess what? They're not as good. They're not as good. And somebody like me noticed that, okay? They do. You're trying the same thing over and over again. Johnell Davis isn't that bad of a player. He's just not. How has this gotten to a point where the pieces where you're trying square peg round hole this much?
I mean, I'll tell you how, because college basketball isn't a video game, and the transfer portal is not a video game. Like, you don't just go and say 18 points a game at Florida Atlantic, stick them onto our team at Arkansas, and we got ourselves 15 to 18 points a game. Because when you go and look at how he was used at FAU and how he's used at Arkansas, it's the inverse. It's the complete inverse. Like, his most used possessions at FAU were in isolation. His most used possessions were in pick and roll, and it is flipped this year. There's almost no isolation. There's almost no pick and roll. And how do you expect to get the same Nelly Davis when you are not putting Nelly Davis in a position to be Nelly Davis? And what I think too is, and this is just real from a player's perspective, is that when you go back and watch FAU highlights and clips of Nelly Davis, you'd be like, he looks like he's got a little more bounce. Like, he looks like he's got a little more burst and has like a little bit more like shit to him. And I'm a firm believer, I've always believed this, that confidence and athleticism are tied together. When you're more sure of yourself, you're more sure of your movements. For sure. And I firmly believe that that's part of what's plaguing him right now. Like, I don't see him playing with that same type of like, and it's not like fire, it's not effort, it's none of that with him, but just kind of that same like swagger to him. And that's why I'm really, really hoping he can get it back, because if he gets it back, this Arkansas team steps up another level, because he's that talented. And we've seen over the years at FAU, didn't matter. Like, they played high major opponents on a number of occasions, and he had 19, 25, like he could really, really, really produce. But he's been kind of deduced to this catch and shoot guy this year. And that's just not, he's a good catch and shoot guy, but like the quality of looks aren't high enough for him to consistently, I think, hit from the outside. Even though he's 34, 35%, he's probably an even better 3-point shooter than that. But when I talk about isolation and pick and roll, I mean, this is a dude that's 85%, 90 plus this year, but 85% from the free throw line. In his career, he's shooting 0.9 free throws a game. Like, how can we get him to the line? Can that get him going? If that gets him going, he's a little more confident. He's a little more confident. He's a little more athletic. I mean, it's all baked into the pie for him. So that's a lot on Nelly Davis, and I don't want it to sound negative, because I love his game, and I've just been kind of like at this Arkansas, they hit another gear if they can get him going.